In today's episode with our guests, we'll go into detail on the Flyers and Habs series and how the Stars are playing against the Flames. In Trending Now, Logan and I will talk about the passing of the great Hall-of-Famer Dale Hawerchuk. Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Bojaranov, and the mic is always on. You can find me on Twitter at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on the three dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with three hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, go to jablamsports.com, see all our podcasts, and even game notes for each episode. You'll get links to all the things we mentioned on this show, including guests. For our podcasts, click on podcasts, and then hockey on this show specifically right on our website. Time for some Trending Now. Logan, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
How can people find you again?
At Hoagie99.
All right, let's get into some trending news. Sad to say the passing of Dale Hawerchuk Tuesday morning after battling with cancer. Hall of Famer was a maybe underappreciated player for what he was, and a lot of people are tweeting out now, and the hockey community and everybody that knew him, that he was such a great person overall. I guess he wasn't really a flashy one, that's for sure.
Yeah, I knew more the name, and I always, if I picture him, I always think he's he's smiling in my mind, almost like a Gretzky always has a smile in my mind. But learning about him a bit more now after his passing, I didn't realize he was 20th on the list. I didn't realize he had, I think, close to 1,600 points. I didn't realize he was on the ice with Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky. I didn't realize he was only like 5'10", 190 pounds. That's pretty much my size.
Yeah,
I don't consider myself that big at all. Well, at least not tall. But yeah, he seemed, like you said, underrated. I didn't realize how good of a player he actually was when he was in his prime.
Yeah. Top 20 on the all-time list. I think it was 1409 total points. And again, I was looking at it, and his stats are really exceptional. And it seemed like he played a lot less games than some of those other guys in the top, 20, 30. Of course, he was the head coach of the Barrie Colts. And like you mentioned it too, he won the face-off when Lemieux and Gretzky teamed up for that big goal for Team Canada. Against the USSR.
I always remember that goal. I've seen that goal many times.
Yeah,
like you have as well. I didn't realize that he was on the ice with them. Right? You just look and you see Mario and you see Gretzky, and you're like, "Holy cow! That right there is a stacked team." Let alone line.
Yeah, sad to hear the passing, and thank you, Hawerchuk, for everything you've done for the hockey community. Going back to the series, the first round series, and we'll get to a few of the interviews just in a little bit, talking more Dallas and Flyers and Canadians in that series. That's been an entertaining series, or some people might not say that's too entertaining. But you know what I found is interesting is that we saw a lot of weird and crazy series in the qualifying round, lots of upsets. The Team 12s all won. And now in this round, it's like, other than the Islanders versus the Capitals, there's that's the only series that could be an underdog team win.
Yeah, it started off like Vancouver, Calgary started off a bit stronger. Who else started? I don't think Chicago had a win, or they looked well against Vegas, but I don't think they they kind of turtled a little bit.
Yeah, Columbus was 1-1. They looked good early in that series against Tampa. You weren't sure there. You weren't sure with
Carolina.
Carolina looked very good in that series at the beginning against Boston. But all these veteran older teams, I think they're picking it up now, like 2, 3, 4 games into this first round. Now they're picking up pace, whereas the other teams have already dealt with and emotionally dealt with a lot of stuff in their opening qualifying round where they were already in the playoffs, like battling playoff atmosphere, backs against the wall scenarios. And now these teams are kind of realizing, hey, we're in the playoffs. Oh, we gotta start playing. And now they are.
I wonder if like some of the less experienced teams, they were like, well, all we have to do is get past this team to get in. That was the only thought process. Well, some of these veteran ones were, well, we'll go A to B to C to D, and then they had a game plan going all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
Where some of the younger ones now they're there going, oh, I didn't think we'd actually get this far.
Yeah.
Now what do we do?
Like, Pittsburgh, Edmonton, Toronto, those few other teams were like, all right, well, we know if we beat this team, we're gonna have to face the Bruins, or we're gonna have to face Colorado next round. This is what's gonna happen. This is they're mentally like preparing, and it's like you're mentally preparing too much for just one game at a time. And now these younger teams, like the Canucks, they were high flying and so fun to watch. And again, this is kind of why I wanted them to not win and then win the lottery, because if they had Lafreniere, oh my goodness, to go with these kids, especially the way they're playing, wow.
Yeah. Pettersson's being Pettersson. I never really thought I've gone past Hughes a couple times in some of our fantasy drafts, and I never really put too much faith in him. Maybe it's because he's on Vancouver as well. I don't put too much faith in Vancouver, but just watching some of his passes out of the zone, his vision, his stick in the right area, you're like, wow, this guy. He still looks small on the ice, but yeah, I want my defense to be like 6'6" and 220 pounds, but he's small, tiny. I don't want to say he's tiny. He's probably a Hawerchuk height or Hawerchuk size, and he's just making plays like he's a veteran almost.
Oh my goodness, Cale Makar, Colin Hughes, even Miro Heiskanen on the Stars. This is the new wave of defensemen, and these three could be winning the Norris for the next 15 years, or battling it out at least between the three of them. Quinn has been outstanding. I watched a couple of his games, and I said during the hiatus, everybody's isolating at home, I wanted, and I put it out there on Twitter, I'm like, can please somebody send me many games of Cale Makar and Colin Hughes? I want to watch it because I'm just, seeing the Eastern side of things and watching my Leafs all the time. But I knew that these two were outstanding, and now I get to watch a little bit more of them now when highlighting with these playoff games, and they're outstanding. And wow, the Canucks have been fun to watch as well. Pettersson, Hughes, and even Bo Horvat. I did not know that he had I would say almost Mario Lemieux-esque in him in terms of some of those beautiful goals that he's been scoring, going around defenders and finishing on the goaltenders have been outstanding. He's scoring highlight reel goals and playing outstanding for the Canucks.
Yeah, he's going around and through defensemen, and you kind of wonder, it's like, has he always been able to do this? Because I haven't seen this really before. I think when he first came into the league, I remember there was a bit of hype around him. Mm-hmm. But the last couple of years, he's lost a step or he was taking it slow. They put a C on him for a reason, I guess. They realized that he's an important piece in Vancouver. And now that I guess that's what happens when you're important, when you got a C on you step up in the playoffs. You lead by example, right?
Yeah, for sure. Man, it's going to be tough because now the Blues are playing really well and look like they've got their mojo going. But I even said this before, the Canucks are very entertaining. I love their core, and they've shown it. Some really good signs in that first qualifying round, and now against the Blues. So we'll see. Hopefully, maybe they can still pull off a game or two against them. We'll see. But it's going to be tough.
It'll be tough, but it's not out of the realm of possibility either.
Yeah.
That's how good they are.
They are. And even the Stars or in the Flame series has been really, really fun to watch. They've got some good players on there. All right. That's it. Let's get to some interviews. I think first up is Kelly in Philadelphia, and let's talk some Flyers. Let's go to Philadelphia and talk with Kelly Hinkle. She covers the Flyers at Broad Street Hockey. Of course, you can go to the website, broadstreethockey.com, and she's, of course, one of the amazing four on the podcast, BSH Radio. You can find her on Twitter at Hinks. Kelly, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So where are you right now? Are you back in Philly?
I am in Wilmington, Delaware at the moment, which might as well be Philly.
Be close enough a little bit. And how did the Great White North treat you?
It was amazing. I'm very bummed that I'm not there anymore, but I'll be back someday if Justin Trudeau ever lets us come back in. To be honest, I don't think I would ever let Americans come back in, so I totally get it, but hopefully someday I'll be back.
Okay. We'll be glad to have you back. So we just finished watching Game 4, that is. So it's 3-1 for the Flyers. I would say it's trending that Flyers are playing well in this boring style of defensive hockey.
That's what it looks like. It's been a little bit of an adjustment because the Flyers were right at the pause, kind of the most exciting version of the Flyers that we've seen in a long time. And in order to beat the Canadiens, they've had to be not very exciting at all. All three of these wins have been kind of slogs to get through. Today, I think, was the most fun win that we've seen so far in the series. And then, of course, the 5-0 loss was not fun at all. But they've really had to completely adjust the way that they were playing. Specifically, their forechecking. Montreal's just done a really good job shutting that down, which was very good for the Flyers at the end of the regular season. So it's been different, but wins are wins, and if the Flyers can win a playoff series, I honestly don't care how it happens.
Yeah, it's I think we talked about it last week, me and Anthony, that the Flyers are just going to play this actual style, a little bit more defensive, especially maybe the ice just seems a little more choppy. A lot of players are using it, so it's working well for them. And I'm really glad, and for my fantasy playoff team, that I waited till the end to pick Carter Hart. And he's playing pretty well for me right now. I'm a little angry that I didn't take more Flyers, but I had a good feeling that they would play well. And you can go to my playoff pool. It's on at jablamsports.com on the NHL Playoff 2020 pool page. But I'm glad I picked him. He's playing really well.
Yeah, solid pick for you. I had a lot of confidence heading in that he was going to be good. Don't know that. As a Flyers fan, it's hard to be fully confident in anything ever, especially a goaltender. But he is just really good. There's not really a lot to say about it. He's just so positionally sound and calm. He never has to make big, athletic, exciting highlight reel saves because he's just in the right spot all the time. He just makes it look super easy. And that, I think, that's kind of, helping the Flyers transition this defense first game, because they know that ultimately at the back end, they have a brick wall and net. And so they can kind of not worry as much as maybe they had to in the past.
Yeah, he seems like the missing piece of the puzzle after all those years of the Roman Chichmanics and the rest of them.
Yeah, right?
For sure. During isolation, though, I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast before, but during isolation for the first 2-3 months, I actually did an NHL Playoffs 2020 simulation That's also on the website, the sim page. And I played every single game on EA Sports, simulated, let the computer do everything. And in the finals, I'll fast forward. But if you want, if anybody's listening to you can go to the sim page on jablamsports.com. You can watch every single game, all the stats for every game, the league leaders, the team leaders in the finals, Flyers versus the Oilers. And yes, the Flyers won the cup. And I will say this. I was very interested in seeing how well this kid named Abe Kubel stood out to me. I'm like, wow, this kid's really good. He's up there in points. Bottom 6 forward. He didn't play today in the game. So let people know maybe why he didn't play and what he brings to the table.
It was a little bit of a surprise that he was a scratch, and I think we're all kind of assuming it's a little bit hard since they're not really giving us a ton of updates out of the bubble as far as injuries go. But he blocked a couple of really heavy shots in Sunday's game. And so I think we're kind of assuming that maybe he's just a little banged up. He took one off the foot specifically. I think it might have been a Shea Weber shot, which, like, had to hurt. Yeah. So we're kind of assuming, since he had played so well, that he's just a little shaken up, and that's why he's out, but we don't know for sure. Alain Vigneault kind of indicated that he was really going to start mixing stuff up since the Flyers lost that 5-0 game and then didn't really look great in Sunday's win. So we knew that he was going to switch some stuff up. It's possible that he just decided that taking NAK out and putting in Connor Bunnaman and Joel Farabee, that was one of the mix-ups that he wanted to do. But I'm pretty confident that he didn't play because of injury and not because of anything that he's done on the ice.
A little banged up, a little maintenance day. You mentioned Farabee. They put him on the power play as well today. They just I don't know. I guess maybe the style that they're playing with, but the scoring seems very low. I think we still only have 2 assists from both Claude and Travis. So how are we gonna spice up that power play? I think they're only 4%. Well, after today, they're maybe, I don't know what it is, 1% almost now on the power play.
It's bad. It's pretty bad. Yeah, the power play's been really, really bad. They're lucky, I think, that the power play is not hurting them more than it is. I mean, like, you can't just give up 9, 10, 11 power play opportunities in a playoff series and not score a goal. Like, that's not going to work for you long term. You kind of just assume that the power play is running cold because it's not like the talent's not there. I do think that they're having a bit of a problem with their setup right now. I don't think they're getting enough of a body in front of Carey Price reliably on the power play. It's pretty obvious that if Carey Price sees a shot coming at him, he's going to stop it. Pretty much every one of the Flyers goals that they've scored in the series has come with some kind of traffic in front of Price. So why they're not doing that on the power play, I don't know. They have indicated that they're going to switch some stuff up there too. It didn't look great today. But the top end talent on the Flyers isn't just struggling on the power play. They've been struggling at 5-on-5 too. You mentioned Claude Giroux. Today's game in particular, I think you could really see that he's frustrated with himself and doesn't seem to trust his talent. There was a couple of times when he had a very clear shot that he, in the past, like, it's like an easy wrist shot. Like, he can score goals and he's passing. And I don't know what's up with that. He just seems to be in his head a bit. I think that when these super talented, super competitive guys that are used to scoring goals, when they hit a cold snap, sometimes they just get in their own head. And I think Drew might be up in there a little bit right now. So I'm sure that once he gets a goal, it's all going to be fine. He's just kind of get that monkey off of his back a little bit. I'm not super worried about it just because right now the Flyers are still winning games. But as we go further in the playoffs, and hopefully we do, obviously you're going to need your top 2 line scoring.
Yeah. You mentioned a net front presence, somebody you can put the puck in the net. Doesn't seem like that guy's playing enough, and that's JVR. Why has he been out? Is it just because he's not contributing enough offensively? We all know that, hey, maybe other parts of his game aren't the greatest and he's a little bit slow. But if me being a Leafs fan remembers, JVR is one of the best in front of net, in tight with those soft, milky hands.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's kind of weird. He's been really, really cold. Even at the end of the regular season and the before time, he wasn't scoring a ton of goals. And obviously that's what James Van Riemsdyk does. Like, that's literally what you pay him for, is to park in front of the net and put goals in. And he hasn't been doing it. And the longer that it's gone on, it seems like the less and less faith the coaching staff has had in him. So he's getting bumped down the lineup, which means he's not playing with very talented centers, which means it's harder for him to have someone dish him the puck in front of the net so he can put it in, because the guys that he's playing with aren't as good as he's used to. Because he's been struggling to score, he's not been getting power play time. That is another thing I don't really understand. I figure if you have a guy like JVR and your power play isn't working, why wouldn't you throw him in there and see what happens? Because it's not going to hurt. But they haven't done that. It just doesn't seem like the coaching staff right now has a ton of faith in him. And I guess because outside of scoring goals, there's not a ton to his game. If he's not scoring goals, they're not going to play him. It's kind of a shame, though, because, you know, they always say goal scorers are streaky, and he's streaky. And the only way that these guys get out of these streaks, obviously, is to play through them until they start scoring goals again. And if he's not playing, obviously that's not going to happen. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen with JVR down the stretch. But yeah, I mean, they put Farabee in and Farabee plays well. They put JVR in, he doesn't play well. It's kind of hard to argue with the decision on a game-by-game basis because it's working. So, yeah.
Well, then my answer is put him in the lineup. Don't matter where you put him 5-on-5, but at least get him on the power play.
Get him on the power play, right? Yeah, like even if you want to play him fourth line minutes, fine. Put him out there on the power play. Literally can't hurt. Your power play is garbage. Park him in front of the net and see what happens.
That's for sure. And you can find her on Twitter. Yeah, you can find her on Twitter. Hinks, Kelly, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Now let's talk some Habs hockey. Back on the show is my pal Ian Boisvert. He's a deputy editor at Rabid Habs and one of the great three on the Nosebleeds cast. You can find him on Twitter at Maybe It's Ian. Welcome back to the show, Ian.
Peter, thanks for having me. Thanks. I wish we had better Habs games to talk about, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are after just recently watching that close game again. Now the Flyers are leading the series 3-1. Game is going to be basically after we record this. It'll be Wednesday night, right?
Yeah, this is every series has a back-to-back built into it, and Montreal and Philly's back-to-back was between games 4 and 5. So, which I guess is easier to do when you're in a bubble because they don't actually have to travel anywhere. Like they couldn't do this if it wasn't in a bubble. So we'll see.
We'll see. So it's just first off, even before going into some of the Habs players and stuff, it's interesting, and we were mentioning right before recording this, that Philadelphia was playing a bit more of a offensive, I would say, entertaining game before the stoppage of play. And now, especially in this series, they played a very chippy, defensive-minded game all series. And it's obviously making Carter Hart look good.
Yeah, no, I think in the regular season, which I mean, a lot of those stats you can just throw away based on, the fact that we had 4 months away from whatever that was. Mm-hmm. But the Flyers were the 7th best offense in the league in goals for.
Yeah.
And now I think on the broadcast, at least in the States, they mentioned that the Flyers were the first team in NHL history to lead a series after Game 3 while only scoring 3 goals. They had scored 2 in Game 1. They got shut out in Game 2, and they scored 1 in Game 3 to get a 1-0 shutout.
Yeah.
It's funny. The Canadians are down in the series now 3-1, but I saw a funny tweet from Habs Laughs, a great Canadians fan follow. He said the Canadians still lead on aggregate, which is a soccer term, obviously, but they have 6 goals. The Flyers have 5, and they're down 3-1 in the series, which is it's a bizarre way to look at this.
Yeah.
But they're kind of playing like the Blue Jackets played the Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. They're mucking up the neutral zone. It's hard for the Canadians to get anything going speed-wise. They're not we're going to beat you on the wall kind of team. They can play that way from time to time. But yeah, the Philly has played, I compare it to either late 90s hockey or Guy Boucher hockey. Like, tell me that this isn't the Senators from when, he was coaching that team, or the Lightning when they just played the trap.
Yeah.
Which I'm a little bummed out by, because I didn't expect the Canadians to get by the Flyers. I was at least expecting the Flyers to be, the juggernaut that we thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
And while Carter Hart has back-to-back shutouts, I can't say with any level of certainty that he's had to make any more than 5 or 6 really good saves. It's Montreal's putting a lot of this chest. They had a lot of goalposts in Game 3, but I mean, the goalpost thing I don't really buy, because that means you could put any goaltender in net and it's still not going in. So you got to hit the net. Yeah, it's some good performances from some of the young players, but it's been disappointing to see how a lot of the talented veterans on this team have kind of wilted under this pressure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was even looking at the stat. It's like the Flyers are like 2% on the power play.
Yeah, and I mean the Canadians, I don't know how much of it is Philly's power play being bad. They've been unlucky. They had a tap in through the slot today that I think Weber just got a stick on. But Montreal pretty much neutralized Pittsburgh power play in the qualifying round.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's the Penguins power play or if that's the Canadians, because the Canadians didn't have a good penalty kill this year. I think they were under 80%. And now all of a sudden they're killing everything. And their power play, Montreal's power play, while it looked better at the beginning of the series, I think in the first 2 games they had 3 goals on it. They've kind of fallen off, back to what we sort of have come to expect from this team. They're going to try to filter everything over to Weber. But, if he doesn't get that shot off, they're not really generating a whole lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, that 3-headed snake of Weber, Petrie, and Sherratt are really playing well on the back end there for the Habs. But I do like Kotkaniemi's game has looked pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we knew Suzuki was good coming into this. He had a great season.
Yeah.
There was no reason to believe he was going to take a step back. And the scary thing is he's only getting better. I think with every game he gets better in this, even as the point totals drop and maybe the ice time falls a little bit. The Flyers have to play Suzuki harder. And Kotkaniemi, Canadians fans have thought he was going to be special. His rookie year was really quite something. Just 18 years old, he came over, and no one expected him to play, but Plekanec wasn't anywhere near as good as we thought he was going to be. So Kotkaniemi stayed, and he had a great rookie season. This last season, he wasn't playing well, and when he wasn't playing at all, he dealt with a spleen injury that if the playoffs started on time, he probably wouldn't have played. I don't know how he managed to get better with all of that, with all of that time off. And you're a Maple Leafs guy. You know how tough markets can weigh on a young player.
Yeah.
There are people calling him a bust this past year, and he's not even 20 years old yet. It's insane to me. But man, it's so funny because he's still got a really slender frame. He's tall, but he's very strong. He's still building muscle onto that frame, which is only going to make him more impressive, bumping guys off the puck. He was battling with Kevin Hayes a lot in this series. I think he was back checking on Hayes and knocked him over, and Hayes kind of got mad and threw a little cross check his way. It's been nice to see him, put the tools together to be able to dominate. He's not quite there yet. He's still got a lot of baby fat to grow into, but it's really exciting how the Canadians went from no centers at all to the potential of having Suzuki, Kotkaniemi, and Domi down the middle, and Dano down the middle for the time, for the future. Who knows where Drouin goes? He's not playing center anyway. Who knows where Domi goes? Last year Domi was great. He doesn't look all that great in these playoffs, and he's a restricted free agent to be. And, Marc Bergevin doesn't like to mess around with that sort of thing. So it's always great to see those 2 young guys take their place on this team and really dominate. And I think we'll see more of that moving forward.
I've liked also Price's game. He seems vintage Price so far, you could say, these playoffs. Against the Pens, he looked really steady. And, of course, with the Pens, they had a very good possession game. So he had a lot of pressure there on and off. And against the Flyers, he's looked pretty good as well. Maybe that last goal in the game today wasn't the greatest. But overall, he's looked pretty good.
Yeah, that last goal, it's funny. Like, I don't think watching it, I don't know if Myers was actually trying to put it on net. I think he was trying to put it wide, and it skipped off of either a body in front of him, and then it dipped and hit the ice and popped back up. And Price just kind of got it with his stick in a funny way. But I mean, even if he doesn't give that goal up, we still don't win because they didn't score any goals. You know what I mean? So Price has been worth the $10.5 million tag that's on him just in these playoffs alone. It's funny, I wonder how much he thinks he needs to actually try in the regular season. Not try necessarily, but he seems to have found another gear in these playoffs.
Yeah.
He hasn't been relied on as much in this series. The 5-0 game was a huge blowout, and on top of that, he's only given up, like I said, 5 goals in 3 games. That should, most of the time, if you told me Carey Price only gave up 5 goals in 3 games, I would think the Canadians would have a winning record at the end of it.
Yeah.
But it's been good to see, him and Weber, they've both still got games to play. They're not burnt. So I think that put a little bit of people at ease, considering that, we're always thinking about the young guys that are coming up and whether or not our prospects prime will match with whatever Price and Weber have left.
Yeah.
Alexander Romanov, the Canadian second-round pick from a few years ago, who was the defenseman of the World Junior Championships not too long ago. He's in the bubble. He can't play, but he's a piece that's coming along that might play with Weber next year if all things go well.
Mm-hmm.
I think this Canadians team, what makes it super frustrating is we're supposed to be emotionally invested in these games, and I'm supposed to be mad that they lost, but how can I be? They're not supposed to be here. They're the 24th best team in the NHL, and they somehow made the playoffs. I can't bring myself, saying, oh, they're not scoring, they're not good enough. Yeah, they're not good enough. That shouldn't surprise anyone. That's not you're not saying anything that nobody already knows.
Yeah.
I've looked at this as a found wallet. I think that, it's been awesome to see Suzuki play as well as he has. It's been awesome to see that Carey Price isn't dead yet. It's been awesome to see more people start to take notice of Kotkaniemi's game. So, win or lose this series, I think it was a valuable experience. I've liked the way that they played, not so much in game 4. Game 3 was what it was. They weren't going to always play like game 2. I think they were playing off an emotional high. Playing for Claude Julien, who was, recently had a bit of a health scare. So, we'll see how far they can push it. I'm interested to see how this team reacts with their backup against the wall. It was 10 years ago now that the Canadians went down 3-1 to the Capitals in their first round series there as an 8 seed, and they ended up coming back and winning it. Much different circumstances, of course, but Carey Price can go on that Halak-like run, and as funny as it would be to meet the Bruins at some point in the playoffs and have Halak versus Price, I don't think we could pass that up. That would be too good.
That would be too good. A Team 12 team trying to make it pretty far. That would be outstanding. Before we go, I do want to mention about Gallagher. Speaking about being held off the score sheet and everything we talked about, not getting enough offense. It seems like he's gotten chances. He's shooting. He's probably like leading the team in shots by far on anybody else on the roster. And then in this last game, he still had a few shots, and then they benched him in the third period.
Yeah, the benching was weird. I don't think I've ever seen that before, and I don't think Gallagher was too happy about it. He was asked about it after the game and said something to the effect of, well, that's the coach's job. If he thinks that other players can play better, then he needs to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Gallagher has one mode and it's on, and he doesn't. It's not from lack of effort. I don't think you can say a lot of things about Brendan Gallagher. He's too small. You can never say that he's not trying. You know, he's out there. He's in the blue paint. He's fighting for this team. He goes into the corners against guys he has no business going in there against, and a lot of times he comes out with the puck because that's just who he is. I think they just need to figure something else out that works. The Canadians relied on what was their top line for a very long time, and Philip Deneau down the middle, Tatar on the left, and Gallagher on the right. And that line hasn't worked for a few reasons. One, Deneau's been kind of tasked with a defensive shutdown role. You know, he did a pretty good job against Crosby, I thought, in the qualifying round. And also, Tatar's not going either.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of Gallagher's play is scoring goals, but a lot of it also is he takes the puck hard to the net, and he kind of relies on his other teammates to step in and bang the puck home. Like we saw in Tatar's first goal in Game 2. Gallagher just took the puck hard to the net, puck bounced out to Tatar, and he put it home. They all need to be on the same page. I worry, people are always saying, oh, we need to shuffle the lines to get things going. I worry if it's too little too late at this point. Just because you don't have that chemistry that Tatar, Deneau, and Gallagher had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's tough to build that when you haven't played with each other for 4 months, and now you're getting, you know, they might have a morning skate tomorrow. They might not, considering it was a back-to-back. So it's tough. Muller's in deep here. I think he's doing a fine job with what he's been given, but I don't expect Gallagher to get benched again. The guy he got benched with, Jonathan Drew, and I would expect, because that's just sort of par for the course with that player, unfortunately. But you know, Gallagher's Gallagher. He's people are calling for him to be traded after this game. I don't quite get it. He's been the heart and soul of this team for what is it, 8 years now?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have anything but positive things to say about this player. I mean, I wouldn't want to see him in any other jersey because I don't want to play against him. I want him on my team.
For sure. All right, you can find him on Twitter at Maybe It's Ian. Ian, thank you for stopping by, and best of luck with the Habs.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Let's talk some Dallas Stars. And back on the show is Bruce LeVine. He's the co-host of the Dallas Stars radio broadcast. You can find him on Twitter at Bruce LeVine Puck. Bruce, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back. It's been quite an evening tonight, coming from the Dallas Stars win and doing the show, and now being with you. I'm thrilled to be back.
Oh, for sure. What a turn of events this series is. It's, you know what? I would have to say for sure off the bat, this is probably the most entertaining series out of all of them this round.
Which is surprising because a lot of people thought there would be other series that were more high octane, but this has been a complete contrast. You know, Dallas won 2 games by a score of 5-4, which they're not known for putting lots of pucks in the net. And then they win game 5 by a count of 2-1, which is more their brand, more their identity, playing strong defense, keeping the puck out of their net, keeping offensive chances away from their zone. So they've won in 2 fashions that we didn't expect. And then they won one in a fashion that we did. But one thing about the Dallas Stars is this is a team that, when you look at it, was really 12 seconds away from being utterly on the ropes. And to go from almost being down 3-1 to being up 3-2 shows us how quickly hockey changes.
It sure does. Like I was just talking earlier on this episode with Flyers and Habs, and how the Flyers are playing totally different than the way they usually do. And now the Stars are playing fairly different than they usually do. It's been an upside down kind of playoffs going right now.
Well, you know, what did Al Davis say? Just win, baby. That's an American football owner many years ago. It's the playoffs. We're talking Stanley Cup hockey in August after a 4-month layoff. It's about winning. No one cares about style points or are you playing to the way you normally play. I mean, look at poor Carey Price. He's lit in 5 goals in 4 games, and he's down 3 games to 1.
Yeah,
it's all about getting the W. And the one thing I have noticed is that the teams that had to play play-in series, with the exception of the Islanders, who have just taken to a new level, they are really starting to show some fatigue at this point. And the teams that went through the round robin, where it was nice if you won, but if you didn't, so what? There's no repercussions, are starting to get their playoff legs now.
Yeah, and that's one reason why I'm feeling Flyers even more so, because they're still not in that second gear playoff mode in my mind. and I think they can go really far. So we'll see about that.
It's just a matter of getting the job done. It doesn't matter if you're winning like with the Stars, 5-4, 2-1.
Yeah.
The whole point is get to the next round, because the next round you're looking at teams that are everyone's playoff tested, everyone's battle hardened, and there's going to be some great hockey. But again, the Flyers, the Stars, it's not done. It's not a done deal. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Oh, for sure. All right, so let's get to the blue line, and I've talked about him before with you, and he's really stepped up, especially the last 2 games, and that's Carl Klingberg. He's been solid in this series.
It's very interesting because early in the series, it was apparent that the Calgary forwards wanted to hit John Klingberg as often and as much as possible. You saw in games 1 and game 2 that Milan Lucic went right at him, and you saw Bennett and Monahan, throw bodies. But Klingberg's been able to bounce off and raise his game. One thing about John Klingberg is he gets a little bit lost down here because Miro Heiskanen is the wonder child, and everyone's saying he's the future Hall of Famer. But John Klingberg is a pretty darn good defenseman. He's won world championships. He's played in the Olympics. And up until the time Miro got here and started to really progress, John Klingberg was the number 1 D-man. He and Esa Lindell were the Stars' go-to guys. And to see him perform, tonight he was on the ice for both goals. He was +2, had the game-winning goal, was the catalyst for the game-winning goal in overtime, took the shot that Joe Pavelski got the rebound on that sent it to overtime. And he's been playing because of the injury to Stephen Johns, and Andre Sekera sort of struggling at the beginning of this series. You're looking at Klingberg, Lindell, Heiskanen, Alexiak have all played upwards of 23 to 27 minutes a night in regulation play. So they're taking a lot of the load, and Klingberg is coming through offensively, which the Stars could not have asked for anything more at this time.
For sure. And you mentioned Heiskanen. Maybe they should re-answer that question of who should have been nominated and who should have won the Rookie of the Year last year. But boy, has he been outstanding. 2 goals, 6 assists. He's a +4. He's outstanding everywhere so far.
If Miro Heiskanen played on the East Coast or played in a Canadian city, he would have been nominated for Rookie of the Year. He would be talked about with a great young defenseman. Cale Makar is fantastic, but he also has a little bit of a following because he did play hockey in Boston, where a lot of the media realized that this kid was going to be special. When Miro came in under the radar, as much under the radar as he'd come in as a 3rd pick overall, but he's quiet. He doesn't talk much. He's not flashy. He lets his game speak for him, and he has been a revelation. There's a lot of people around here who are comparing himself to somebody who wore 56 for the Dallas Stars, Sergei Zubov.
No, not my boy Zubs. Oh,
they're saying that if you've got to go back to Sergei Zubov to find a defenseman with the complete package that Miro Heiskanen has. And when you're 20, he just turned 21 during the break, during the COVID break. When you are 21 years old and people are making legitimate comparisons to Sergei Zubov, you are something special. And Heiskanen is absolutely, the other night in the overtime game, he played almost 35 minutes. We're talking a 21-year-old in his 2nd year, and he's playing 35 minutes in the biggest game of the year. And the Stars just rave about him, and he's going to be something that is going to be fantastic to watch for the next decade.
For sure. Another player who I've liked their game especially is Joe Pavelski. And again, 5 goals already these playoffs. Big goals. He's looked really good on that power play as well.
Joe Pavelski, during the regular season, he struggled a bit. He was trying to get used to being in Dallas, and the numbers weren't as good, and just the chemistry wasn't there. But playoff Joe Pavelski has been everything the Stars advertised him to be when they signed him in the offseason. Single-handedly, you look at the hat trick in game 4 and the tying goal. He almost willed that team to stay alive in that game. And he had, a rebound on the power play. He had a great wrist shot in the 2nd period. And then, it takes a bit of, fortitude to stand in front of the net with seconds winding down to get that rebound and score. And that is a huge deal for the Dallas Stars to have somebody with that kind of composure and skins on the wall to get the job done in the postseason. And Pavelski's done that. Interesting thing, though, he's got a new nickname with his teammates. They are calling him Joe Exotic now.
Why is that?
I've seen pictures of a couple of the Dallas Stars going to a game where they've taken the Joe Exotic from Tiger King and superimposed Joe Pavelski's face where Joe Exotic used to be. And I don't know, it's his new nickname. And you know what? If he keeps playing like this, why change it? But I never thought you'd see Joe Pavelski known as Joe Exotic, but he's playing like it right now.
Amazing. So one guy we're still expecting big numbers from him, and I don't know if he's still 100% yet, and that's Tyler Seguin. Is he 100%? Like, what's going on?
I don't think he's 100%. Yeah. You got to remember, during the play-in round, he missed a couple of games.
Yep.
And he had a couple of days where he missed practice under the unfit to play or participate. We don't know exactly what he's injured, but in game 1 of the Calgary series, he began on the third line. He started on the third line. Then in game 2, they moved him up with Benn and Radulov, where he's been. Game 5 was his best game. He made the assist to Jamie Benn. They gave Dallas 1-0 lead, but he had 5 hits. He was more himself on the ice. He's had some bad luck. He's hit a couple of posts, but the Stars do need Tyler Seguin, and they need that line in general of Seguin, Benn, and Radulov to put some goals in. Now, Radulov got the deflection that won the game in overtime, but we're still waiting to see a dominant performance from that line. You know, a few years ago, Benn and Seguin used to eat up Calgary regularly. Lots changed in Calgary, but the Stars still need their big players to be their best players, and it will not be easy to close out the Flames. They're going to need Seguin and Benn and Radulov to be a little bit more in the offensive zone and get things done.
For sure. Bruce, good luck in the rest of the series. Thank you for coming on the show.
Peter, always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It was great chatting with Kelly again. She must enjoy having Carter Hart on the Flyers now. Thanks as well to Ian and Bruce joining as well to talk about the Montreal Canadiens and the Dallas Stars. Next week, we'll talk about the second round matchups. We'll have great guests to talk about them, and Logan and I will give you our predictions on those series. Check that out next Wednesday. Go to jablamsports.com to see all our podcasts and even game notes for each episode. You'll get info and links on things we mentioned on this show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and click on 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends. If you want to contact us, or if you have any questions on the show, you can follow me on Twitter at Russian98 or the entire team at JablamSports. You can also use the hashtag JablamSports, that's JABLAM Sports. You can also go to our contact page on our website, jablamsports.com/contact. Also, if you like wrestling, go check out our new wrestling podcast, Pro Wrestling Explode, presented by our team at Jablam Sports. It's where Pepperoni, Miranda, and I get into AEW and WWE. We recap and analyze recent matches, storylines, pay-per-views, and what's in wrestling news. Thank you, everyone. Shout out. Well, this week's shout out is to all my friends and family. I know you know how tough it's been right now for the Bojaranov family right now, and for myself. I just want you all to know that it's been nice to get your phone calls, text messages, and social media messages. I do want to say that I know I might have been short or not responsive like my usual go-lucky self, Peter. But hang in there. Maybe I'll be back in the future. But I want to just thank you all for all the responses that I've got. Bless you all. And to every one of our followers and listeners, I'm giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.